Steve Jobs, the complete life story, from garage to global icon. Steve Jobs was born on 24th February 1955 in San Francisco, California. Shortly after birth, he was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple living in Mountain View, California. From a young age, Steve exhibited traits of brilliance and rebellion. His adoptive father taught him the basics of mechanics and craftsmanship, planting the seeds of innovation early. Despite being bright, Steve Jobs often clashed with traditional education systems. Teachers described him as clever but difficult to manage. In high school, Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak, a brilliant engineer who shared his love for electronics. Together, they explored their curiosity, famously creating a blue box that allowed users to make free long-distance calls. Though illegal, this project showed Steve Jobs his potential in turning ideas into products. After graduating, Steve Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Oregon, but dropped out after one semester, choosing instead to audit classes like calligraphy, which would later influence the elegant typography of Apple products. In 1976, at just 21 years old, Steve Jobs co-founded Apple Computer with Wozniak and Ronald Wayne in his parents' garage. Their first product, the Apple I, was a modest success, but it was the Apple II that made history. Sleek, user-friendly, and accessible to the average consumer, it became one of the first mass-market personal computers. Apple went public in 1980, making Steve Jobs a multimillionaire overnight. However, Steve Jobs' intense personality and perfectionism created friction within Apple. By 1985, after power struggles with then CEO John Sculley and Apple's board, Steve Jobs was forced out of his own company. Instead of retreating, he founded a new company, Next, which developed high-end computers for education and business. Though Next's products didn't achieve commercial success, its software would eventually become the foundation for macOS. During this period, Steve Jobs also acquired Pixar from George Lucas in 1986. With Pixar, Steve Jobs achieved a second act of innovation, revolutionizing animation. Pixar's first feature film, Toy Story, 1995, was a global sensation, and under Steve Jobs' leadership, Pixar became the leading animation studio in the world. It eventually merged with Disney in 2006, making Steve Jobs Disney's largest shareholder. In 1996, Apple acquired Next, and Steve Jobs returned to the company he co-founded. With his return, Apple entered a new golden era. Steve Jobs eliminated unnecessary product lines, revitalized Apple's culture, and launched a series of hit products. The iMac, 1998, reintroduced Apple's brand with a colorful flair, while the iPod, 2001, and iTunes Store, 2003, changed the music industry forever. Then came the revolution. In 2007, Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone, a sleek, touch-based device that redefined communication, entertainment, and the Internet. The iPhone didn't just disrupt the phone market, it created a new one. 2 years later, the App Store opened new doors for developers and consumers alike. In 2010, the iPad continued Apple's tradition of redefining existing technology in intuitive ways. Despite his success, Steve Jobs faced a long battle with health issues. Diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer in 2003, he initially resisted surgery, trying alternative treatments instead. He later underwent surgery and a liver transplant, continuing to lead Apple through some of its most successful years. In 2009, he took a medical leave, and by August 2011, he officially resigned as Apple's CEO, naming Tim Cook as his successor. Steve Jobs passed away on 5th October 2011 at the age of 56. His death was mourned across the globe. Tributes poured in from world leaders, business rivals, and millions of fans. Even Apple's fiercest competitors acknowledged the mark he had left on the world. Steve Jobs' legacy is immense. He didn't just make products, he shaped how people live, communicate, and think about technology. His emphasis on design, user experience, and pushing boundaries made Apple a symbol of innovation and elegance. But Steve Jobs also left a deeper legacy, one of resilience, bold vision, and belief in the power of intuition and creativity. As he once said in his 2005 Stanford commencement speech, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Stay hungry. Stay foolish." If Steve Jobs' story inspired you, hit like, share, and subscribe. For more extraordinary stories, stay tuned to my channel. Thank you for watching.